welcome to another episode of The Hollywood Knitter. My name is Allison and I will be your host. I'm recording on Friday, July 12th, 2019 from my home in Los Angeles, California. It is a hot one here. We finally have hit our stride for summer. We've been a little slow this year. So we've been in pretty temperate temperatures the last 2 months in the 70s, and this week we're finally hitting the 90s. So it is quite warm. So my AC is on and might pop on because it's starting to warm up, so it's going to be coming on soon. But anyways, how is everyone's summer going if you're in the northern hemisphere, or I guess you're in winter if you're in the southern hemisphere? Winter. It will be here soon enough. It's been a little while since I last recorded, about a month, and I've had some travels, some knitting, some FOs. I'm wearing one. Talk about it in a minute. That I wanted to share with you, and some stash enhancement, and just kind of catch you up on what's been going on with me. So let's start with in the can FOs, and I will start with the one I'm wearing. And I'm going to stand up first. This is the Asagi by Bristol IV. It's a paid pattern, and it is just a little tee, and I don't think I'm even going to be able to. Let me move the chair so I can maybe step back a little. You're still not going to see it. Oh, my tippy toes. It's just a very simple stockinette stitch fingering weight t-shirt with a little cap lace sleeve detail. Very simple, very easy, very wearable. And I did this because my friends Martha and Carol, and they did this as a knit along. I can't remember what retreat they did it for, but they did it for a knit along. And so I copied them and made it in Jill Dripper Makes Off in the esophagus colorway that I picked up at Zombie and Apocalypse last year, and it's 100% merino. And I ended up using 2.25 skeins, or right just over 1,100 yards, and so I still have a fair amount of the third skein left. And didn't really do any modifications. The only thing I did is I didn't have as much ease as the pattern recommended. I think it recommended, like, I want to say 8 to 10, and I think I did 2 or 4. I like my tees a little more fitted than loose. That's just a preference, so I knit it the way I like it. And yeah, I really love the green color. I didn't have to alternate skeins. Totally can't tell, where I switched skeins. The only modification I did is initially I followed the pattern in terms of length, and then actually finished it, tried it on, and it was too short. And I had a bit of a high-low hem because I think of the way it's knitted. It's an interesting construction where you knit across the back, sleeves, pick up here, knit down, pick up here, knit down, and then join there. And so I think that caused a bit of a high-low because the back is a little longer than the fronts. And I wasn't digging on it originally because it was too much of a high-low. And it really wasn't that much. It was maybe 1.5 inches. But because when I tried it on the first time, it was already too short, it was more noticeable. So I decided when I made it longer to go ahead and do some short, I did 8 rows of short rows in the front, and that gave me about 1 inch. So it brought it down, and so now it's pretty flat across the bottom. And I actually think I made it maybe a touch too long this time because it did block a little longer. But I've decided I'm gonna kind of wear it, a time or two, and if I still think it's longer, because this is a top down, it'll be really easy just to rip out the bottom ribbing, rip back, and then reknit it. So I'm gonna live with it for now since I reknit the bottom twice. I also had to redo the neckline twice, the ribbing, initially when I picked it up, and it's not anymore, but I had this really bad flip where I just had too many stitches in the back. So I basically ripped back and did a different pickup. I think in the back it was like a 1 for 1, and I think instead I did like a 2 for 3 or something, and to basically reduce that and bring it in. So yeah, it took me about a month to knit, and I was hoping to finish it for Zombie and Apocalypse, and I did not, but it was good mindless knitting when I was there. And then I finished it, when did I finish it? Right after I got back, the end of June. This is my first time wearing it, of course. I was waiting to wear it for the podcast, and I still need to get pictures. So after this, I'm going to take some pictures, but I am pleased with the fit, the feel. Fingering weight in the summer in California is doable, and I actually really like the color. I have a type, basically. I think somebody had said when I was knitting on, yeah, I was knitting at something else that was green. Yeah, so super pleased. That's the Asagi by Bristol IV. It is a paid pattern, but she's a great designer, so I didn't have any problems with the pattern. The other thing I finished was a pair of shorty socks, and I've been using the Sockmatician's Toe Up as my basically recipe for the heel. So this is basically looks like a, you know, a traditional gusset, pick up and gusset heel, slip stitch heel, and then I just did a few rows to make it short. And I'm liking this for fitting my foot better, I think. So I sort of switched over from the fish lips kiss heel to this for my toe up socks. And I'm sure when something else comes along, I'll switch to it. But I started these in May. These took me about 3 or 4 weeks. And this is 3 Irish Girls Adorn Luxe, which is their 85 merino, 15% nylon base. And the ants go marching and capture the flag. And these were goodie bag yarns from Zombie Apocalypse 2018 that I originally had knit into a shawl, I think the Kimba shawl, and I didn't like it. Didn't like the shape afterwards. I like the colors, and after sitting with it for 6 months, I ripped it all out. And so I'm repurposing the yarn, and so I decided pair of toe up socks, as I said, blue for the toe, and then I just did like slight detail where I switched the yarns, and then yeah, made them shorty. So these are for me, so I'm excited they get to go. I have noticed that I want to wear more shorty socks, especially with like sneakers and stuff, and like when I'm traveling in the summer or something like that, where shorty socks are more appropriate than a taller knit sock. The other sock is socks I finished are for my boyfriend, and this is a super interesting sock. So this is the strips tease pattern by General Hog Buffer. And this came about because when we went to Stitches West 2018 and I had him picking sock yarns and patterns or challenges, I don't know how the conversation, I just remember it being in a hotel bar, and he asked something about whether I could do vertical stripes. And so of course I got on Ravelry and I found this pattern, and now I finally got around to knitting it. Now, the yarn he picked out, this yarn is Fierce Fibers Pandora base, which is a fingering weight, which is a merino cashmere nylon, and it's in the colorway Tide Pods, and it was a gradient. So what that means is this sock is knit from the top down, which is something I don't usually do, but basically you knit the cuff and then you pick up and you do a strip. You do this short strip first, so this blue. So I picked up from the inside, which was the orange, and then the outside, which was the blue, and then the next strip was the orange, and then another orange, and then do the heel, etc. So you do these 3 strips, then pick up the heel, and then do this middle strip, or actually you do this side strip, then the middle strip where you do your decreases. I'm gonna take it off the sock blocker so I can kind of show you. So the heel, it's just your kind of traditional gusset, and then your decreases instead of are all in this bottom piece where you go back down, and then you pick up and you knit the long strip, the long strip, the long strip, and then I actually made my strips a little too short, and so I have a longer kind of toe than I would have normally, because basically if you knit them too long, you can't rip back without ripping the whole sock out. So the recommendation was go a little short on the toe, because you can always just make the length up with the toe. So super easy construction relatively. You know, you're just basically picking up, well, the initial is knitting this cuff, and then, you know, picking up these stitches and just knitting a strip, and then picking up along one side, and then knitting and decreasing along that strip that you've just picked up. And I really like the look of it. Now I want to show you the second sock, because as I said, this was a gradient. So the color went from this orange to this dark blue. And so the next sock is the middle of the gradient, and it looks totally different. And I had said when I started this to the boyfriend that these are going to be 2 different socks. Like, same pattern, but different colors. And luckily he's cool with it. But so yeah, this was the same sock, but with the kind of the middle. So you can see I picked up with the blue, and then it started to gradiate into the blue, into like a blue-green before kind of going into the orange color, which eventually then became this bright orange color. I want to try this with my sock scraps, I think. I think it's a great idea, a great different way of using sock scraps, because each strip, so this is 400 yards, and I have basically the equivalent of 6 strips. I did have to, the pattern is more a recipe. If you are her size, which she sizes it for a 66. Yes, she does a 66 stitch sock, and I need to do a 72. So I did have to do some math to increase the strip size. Instead of 11 stitches, mine are 12 stitches. And the math associated with that, having a slightly deeper heel, but not hard. But you do have to think a little bit, just a little. It's not hard though. And it looks, look how awesome these look. I think they look so good. I do have to say this yarn was probably a little thicker, which helped the sizing. It's just a thicker yarn. I would say it's heavy fingering weight. I used every single bit of it. I had inches left. I totally thought the toe of this was gonna have to be a different sock yarn, but I made it, and I'm super pleased with it. And I can't wait to try another one for me. I'm gonna do another one. Crazy socks. I wanna do crazy kind of pattern, different colors, and maybe the same color family. I'm not sure, but definitely going to cast on a pair for myself. So these are the strip tee socks by General Hog Buffer, and this whole sock I pretty much finished at ZK, and then I came home and I worked a lot on the sock, actually 4th of July. So I finished it right after the 4th of July. So yeah, another pair of crazy socks for him, but they'll feel really nice. They have some cashmere in it, so I don't think he'll be, I don't know, we'll see. I'll monitor how often he wears them. He says that it's cool they're different colors, and I think they will be, but yeah. So those are my 3 projects, the tee, the 2 socks. Let's go on into whips. So the one I was working on, I think even last time I talked to you, well, sort of last time. So I'm working on the Beeswax Hat, and this is by Amy Vandelier. And I had started it in May, and then I went to ZK and tried it on my head, and it was just way too big. So I basically ripped it out and restarted it on smaller needles. So originally I was knitting it. This is the yarn I'm using is Dizzy Blonde Studio Superwash DK, and I picked up at Vogue Knitting from my friend Laura. And yeah, I started on the 6s, which were the recommendation from the pattern, and it was too big. So I basically did not bring all my needles to ZK, but I did have a pair of 3 tips that I was, because that's what I had to cast off on the Asagi with, so I had brought them with me just in case. So I was like, well, that's a big difference from a 6 to a 3, you know, down to a 3.25 millimeter. Excuse me, my nose is itchy. But let's try it and see how it comes out, and it ends up looking great. So the pattern is slightly busy because of the yarn, but it's yeah, it's some traveling kind of cable stitches and some knits, and I'm now about halfway done. And this is probably gonna be a charity hat. Obviously you could see the pattern if I were using a solid much better, but yeah, I wanted to use this and I like the pattern. So I'm working on it, and I have it in my bees. This is my bee bag from Fat Squirrel. So that's the Beeswax Hat by Amy Vandelier. And my cat just keeps meowing. Want to say hi to Cloudy? She's getting to be, oh no, she doesn't want to get picked up. She's an old curmudgeonly lady that I have to give medications to now twice a day. Oh, old kitties. I love her, but she is always yelling at me. Always kind of wanting to be up, and she's 16, and yeah. So we're on fun thyroid medication, and then she's on a steroid for, she has like asthma, which I didn't really treat when she was younger and it was fine, but now that she's getting older, we're treating it, and she, yeah. I love my cat and I will love her forever, but she definitely has changed. Her personality has changed as she's gotten older. More needy, more loud, more in my face. Anyways, that's enough about my cat who doesn't want to be on the podcast. Let us go into my next whip, which, let's do my smaller whips so I can get them out of the way. So I have 2 socks on the needle. I cast on, after I finished the strip tease, I cast on the Socks on a Plane by Laura Linneman, which is a pattern I had in my Ravelry library that I'd done years ago. And it's a very simple stockinette sock with just a cable up one side. And I'm doing this, the cable is just to keep me interested. Sometimes just, you know, pure stockinette for the sake of stockinette. It's kind of boring. So it's just a single one cable going up the side that I'm knitting. I think I'm going to give these to my mom. And the yarn I'm using is something I picked up from a D-stash in last year sometime. And it's Kim Dye's yarn, Sourdough Sock, which is an 80/20, and the Paris colorway. And it's just a really cool black with pinks and things like that. And I think she'll like it. I have it in my cool, I can't remember what this is called, but basically my sock needles were crushing through my kitchen counter craft awesome owl bag and causing holes all over the place. So I pulled this out that I gotten years ago as a present, I think, from Emily. So I cast those on, then I knit a little bit on them, but then I was actually going, what I realized, because I had brought these to, I had a training, or not a training, I had a safety meeting or something, and in dim light, and that little one cable, even though it's not very hard, it was too much to be doing mindlessly, where I could be paying attention. So I had another meeting coming up, and so I actually cast on a truly stockinette, purely stockinette. I'm stopped in the middle of a row. That happens. I do it quite often. Straight up stockinette. I'm using the Sockmaticians toe up pattern, and then I'm using Knitty and Color Supernova, which is a yarn I picked up from Maryland Sheep and Wool, I think 2016. And it's just this really awesome explosion of color. And this is just going to be a purely stockinette sock. You can see I got through the toe and a little bit in my meeting that was much shorter than I anticipated, which was nice. So those are on the needles, and I think I'm going to actually put them aside, which I don't usually like doing. I'm going to focus my socks being the Socks on a Plane, just because I started them first, and in my head they have to be finished first. And then I think I'm going to actually keep these Supernova set aside and not like in my purse for all those days I need the truly mindless, where I have a meeting or training or something, and then I'll just switch them out and work on these. Okay, so those are 3 whips. Now I have one more whip, and it's a big one. I see a big spider on my ceiling. I wonder if I'll let it live after this. Anyways, July 1st, after I finish my Asagi, because my goal is to have 1 garment on the needles at a time. And I have a goal of 6 garments for this year. And yeah, I think I'm on my 3rd. I can't remember. Anyways, this one is part of my Make 9, and it is intended to be my Rhinebeck sweater. So I am knitting, I decided, the Wintersol by Jennifer Steingass, which is this great, simple stockinette body, and then it has colorwork yoke with like a tree motif in 2 colors. And I am modifying the pattern because this is done in a worsted, and I'm doing mine in a kind of a DK. So I am having to adjust the numbers a little bit, but I've started the yoke. And I'm doing mine, let's pull it. So the way this starts, it's interesting construction. You actually cast on, they recommend this kind of just casting on in waste yarn so that when you rip it out, your stitches aren't stretched at all in that. So I'm following the pattern and trying it instead of doing some other kind of alternate cast on. And then I'm knitting, the main body is this brown, and then my contrasts for the trees are going to be this dark brown and this orange. and I'm really loving it. Now, my browns are a yarn I picked up. It's called Ula and Leah, and this was actually a Kickstarter project, and this is Mongolian wool. So there's a guy from the US who's living in Mongolia, started a Kickstarter to do Mongolian wool, and he actually just did another one. So this was from last year's Kickstarter, and he did another one for this year, which I bought enough from last year. I have yak and cashmere and camel. But so he basically got a Kickstarter, got a bunch of people come in, and then bought it directly from the farmers in Mongolia, took it all to a spinning mill in Mongolia and got it spun, and then brought it back to the US and sent it all out to us. So I plan on doing the light brown as the main color, like I said, and I have the dark brown. Now, I didn't have a good contrast color, so when I was at Stitches, not Stitches, Vogue LA. Stitches LA? The one that was in LA last November. I picked up this one. It's a Tumi, which is a 50% alpaca for 50% wool, and this is technically a sport weight. But this yarn, because it's directly from the mill, and I did do a swatch in two different kind of ones to figure out which one I wanted. I'm actually knitting mine on the 6, which is the pattern needle size, because I like the pattern. I like the looser gauge. I wanted that. I could have gotten either, well, in no way was I getting gauge because I'm using a much thinner yarn. So I kind of just swatched in 2 needle size and then washed it, and it bloomed quite a bit. You can kind of see it's got a bit of a halo, but I just like this fabric better. This one was a little denser than I would have liked. And although I am wearing this in Rhinebeck, if I ever want to wear it, you know, in LA, that was the other reason for going with a lighter weight sweater, though it is 100%, you know, yeah. So the adjustments I'm having to make, I am knitting this on the 6, but my gauge is off. I basically ran the numbers, and I'm following for the larger size. I should end up getting, I'm a 44-inch bust, and it recommends, I think, 4 inches of ease. And so I did the numbers, and by following the largest size, I should get my size, roughly. However, my row gauge is off, which isn't a big deal on the body because you're just knitting to measurements. But on the yoke, my yoke will be like, the pattern would be like 2 inches shorter. So I am adding some extra tree kind of things. I don't want to show you it, but basically it's these V's of the tree. And so I'm going to do two of these ones twice, and then 2 of these ones twice to kind of make my tree taller. And my yoke will be overall the same height by adding those 2, by repeating 2 of the motifs. So hopefully that works. I just did the math and figured that out last night and said, okay, if I add these extra 11 rows to the color work pattern, how much more height does that give me? Does that bring me closer to what the pattern height is? And it does. So yeah, this is a big deal for me. I've never done a color work sweater like this that I can remember. I've done color work, but in hats and things like that. I don't think I've ever done one in a sweater. And then, you know, making modifications, that doesn't really bother me, but still, I'm modifying it, and we'll see how it goes. So basically, I got to do the whole yoke, which this yoke is huge. And originally I was like, holy crap, it's like way around. But the reason for that is it's not just around your bust, it's also the height around your arm. So it's really kind of around this whole body up here, including your upper arm. So that's why it's bigger. I had to educate myself on that. I'm like, holy moly, it's a lot of stitches. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. As I said, it's my Rhinebeck, so my goals roughly are to finish the yoke in July, and then the body in August, and then the sleeves in September. Faster would be better, but if I do it by then, I'll have it ready for Rhinebeck. And that is in another fast scroll back. I love fat squirrel bags. Her older bags, especially with this kind of upholstery fabric. Okay, so that's all I've been knitting on. I want to talk about Zombie and Apocalypse. So I went since I was last there. It was in June. It was actually a crazy time for me to go. Horrible timing for work. Crunch time for the filling of my reservoir. Luckily, I have an amazing team, and I said I was going regardless, and I needed to get away. I just needed the break. So I went out to Rochester, Minnesota, and hung out with my friends for a few days. It was great. And I didn't do any classes, did some shopping, some walking around, a lot of it's just hanging out and knitting, which is my favorite thing. Was able to sleep. I actually stayed by myself, and so I could sleep as late as I want by myself, and that was nice too. But I'm going to share some of the goodies. I've been waiting. Where would this go? Because I have this chair on it. I'm like, why can I not pick this up? I have a bag of stuff. First, we're going to show you an actual project I took home. So I have a new top, and my friend Carol, who's Penguin Pals, had knit. This is the Derecho by Allison Green, and she didn't like it. And so it was recommended. She was bringing to the try it on room. And before she even put it out, though, said, should I try it on? And I did, and I love it. This is a very simple tee, and this is Barocco Remix, I think. And she didn't like it. I'm not sure why. I think it was too big on her, which totally makes sense because she's much smaller than me. So the fact that it fits me right probably meant it was too big on her. So yeah, it's just this perfect kind of butter yellow, really soft top. I'm like feeling myself, feeling the sweater. The only thing is I probably need to do a little bit more length. It's a little shorter than I like. And she had said she has a little bit of the Barocco left, and so she was going to mail that to me. So when she does, I'm just going to go ahead and put some more length on it, and then I will have a new tee. And it's always wonderful when you get to have like gifts. You know, you get to find a new home for things. I have that all the time where I knit things because I like to knit them, but then I don't want them. And so when you can find the right home for someone who will actually wear it and love it, it's awesome. So I'm happy to be that person who takes the project, since I know when I try to find new homes for my knits, that's what I hope. Next, I'm going to kind of show the goodie bag a little bit. Always give some yarns, and they have multiple dyers, and I actually, it was similar than last year in the fact that they had 3 different dyers. I think Queen City, Suburban Stitcher, and 3 Irish Girls, I think were the 3. And it came with a set of 3. And I actually have 3, but the other one was a different color. It was a kind of a turquoise blue. And I actually traded that out and got another one of this. It's called Beta Hook. And I really liked these 3. Well, I really like these 2 colors and this together. So I have these 3. They're each 200 something yards. So it's 600 yards. So I'm thinking maybe a cowl or something. And it, you know, it's just the kind of greens and teals and stuff I like. So that was our goodie bag yarn. And then also got a great bag with their kind of logo on it for this year, which was, I think, beach and the themes. And this is made, Silver Shed Studio makes these bags for them. Also got kind of a Knitter's Pride, another kind of little fabric bag, which was great. And there were some other little things, but those are the main things I think I put. Oh, and the mug. They do these great pottery mugs, and so this is the one from 2019, and I have the other 2, and I love it. The mug is from Devine Pottery, and I think that they're actually in Minnesota. So I have another great pottery mug, and then yeah. So that was kind of the highlights of the goodie bag, since I think I put some of the stuff away. Now let's go over, I did the yarn swap. So you bring in a sock yarn that you maybe, a great sock yarn that you don't love the color or etc. And then you get to pick a number, and then they all go on a table, and based on your number, you get to pick off the table. And I was number 1. Number 1! So awesome. So I picked very quickly a plucky kind of small batch that was on there that I really liked, just the light colors with just the pops. So I traded that, and I can't remember what I brought. I brought a sock yarn that the color wasn't singing to me anymore, and traded out for one that I like a little more. So, but I felt like the winner, like I was the #1 pick. Awesome. The other thing that they do is they get a lot of donations, and they pull prizes, and everyone I think this year got a prize. Not always, it just depends on how many they donate. And my prize this year was actually a Miss Babs skein. So this is Miss Babs Kira, which is a heavy fingering. It's 560 yards, and it's a Babette colorway, Believable, which I really love, these blues and greens. Really tempted. I'm not sure what this is going to become. I'm not sure, but I love it. Miss Babs is always beautiful. And I think I really kind of have a theme going. I mean, it kind of matches. Okay, all my yarns sort of match. And then the market. I was not feeling like I needed to buy a lot this year. And so I didn't. The only thing I bought, and kind of impulse, is I went into Suburban Stitcher, and I wanted to pick up a mohair that I didn't have any, to kind of hold some mohair together for some of those projects, and I'm not sure. So the thought was, is there's some shawl I saw, and I can't remember, I didn't write it down, that kind of has a fingering weight and mohair, not held together, but like alternated in different patterns, and I can't remember what it was, but I'm sure there's more than one pattern. And I had a skein in my stash called Tandoori, which is kind of these oranges and pinks, and I was sort of looking in my head for a mohair to go with that, and then maybe another skein. So I picked up these. So the silky mohair is Happy Accident. It's mohair silk, and I just love, I think the grays, it's got a little bit of that orange and stuff will go in everything. And then the other thing I picked up was Evangeline. This is her single sock. And again, it's a pink with just a little touch of like an orange-y, kind of pinky orange in there. And that's all I bought. And I'm happy with that. I have a lot of stuff in my stash and a lot of projects in my queue. And so I just didn't feel the need this year. So I have a lot of yarn that I need to get through. And now I need to photograph all this yarn and put it in my stash. So I came back and had a 4th of July. We went down to San Diego last minute and hung out on his brother's boat for the day, which was awesome. We actually were in Mission Bay, and we went out in the water, and we're like directly under the fireworks that SeaWorld puts off, which was really cool. And yeah, just been hanging out. Upcoming travels, the only thing I have definitely on the books is Rhinebeck in October. I have some potential plans for some other travels, but I'm actually feeling a little lackadaisical, which is unlike me. I'm having a homebody time, I guess. I may go see the family later this summer, may not. I need to take my nephew to Europe sometime this fall, but I'm just not motivated to actually plan anything yet. So the only thing I'm definitely on the books for right now is Rhinebeck, and then we'll see from there. As I said, other than that, work, it was so awesome. We made a deadline where a big part of my project, like a big milestone, and we were only a week late, and we met it. And once we met this milestone, like a huge weight was like dropped off me stress wise. So that's wonderful. So a little less stress, just looking to enjoy the summer, get some knitting done, chill out, relax. That's kind of it for now. We have a lot of board games to play. We got some big board games. Batman. There's another one over here, Seventh Continent, that is new that we haven't played yet. And we just got another new game. So I'm hoping just to beat the heat, stay inside, play some board games, and looking forward to that. And yeah, that's kind of all I got to share with you today. I hope everyone is doing wonderful. I hope everyone's having a wonderful summer. I hope to see people at Rhinebeck, and yeah. So if you are looking for me, I'm Allison1031 on Instagram and Ravelry. And yeah, that's that. I'll probably be back in about another month and update you on how my summer knitting is going. So that's a wrap from Hollywood, where fantasy meets fiber and dreams are knit. Goodbye, goodbye,